Namaste, I'm Alakananda Ma, Ayurvedic doctor and principal of Alandi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style Ayurveda school in Boulder, Colorado. Some exciting news. We have an open house coming up on March 1st. If you're living locally, come along and you'll get to meet me in person, and that'll be really fun. So today, on this snowy and cold day, is an absolutely perfect day to talk about the Nordic diet. What is the Nordic diet? It's pretty much the Mediterranean diet, but using foods that are more appropriate to Scandinavian countries, Alaska, Northern Europe, and for us, for winter and for our more northerly states. So it comes from the traditional eating habits of Northern Europe and the North Atlantic. Really similar, basically, to the Mediterranean diet, just using things that are more appropriate to colder climates or to winter. So some of the key components, yes, again, whole grains. I am at war with the new food pyramid. The basis of our diet has been whole grains since the discovery of agriculture. And the whole grains we see in the Nordic diet, very similar to what I grew up with in Britain. Rye, barley, oats are some of the most important whole grains in the Nordic diet, like having a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast, having the rye bread, and I also grew up on the rye crisp breads that were a key feature in the Nordic diet. So yeah, plenty of whole grains with all that protein and fiber and nutrition that they provide. Some oily fish nowadays with the mercury concerns, fish on Friday, or at most fish twice a week, but salmon, mackerel, trout provide you with good omega-3 fatty acids. And then, so important in winter are root vegetables. Potatoes now, I mean, they come from here, they come from the Americas, but they've become very important in Nordic countries and Northern Europe. Carrots, turnips, and beets. And we'll be talking more about turnips and beets in subsequent weeks and what's really special about them. But I had the idea of talking about the Nordic diet when it was fall and we were having a big portion of garden root vegetables, just steamed root vegetables at supper every time. It was so good. In the summer, when there's seasonal, berries are key to the Nordic diet. In actual Nordic countries, you might be having lingonberries, bilberries, cloudberries, also raspberries. The ones we can get here typically tend to be blueberries, raspberries. Depending, we can forage mulberries for a short window here in Boulder, and the fox showed us where to go to get the mulberries. We followed the fox. So enjoying berries in season for some extra antioxidants and vitamins. Dairy is very key in the Nordic diet, and there are special yogurt type preparations that are made in Finland and other Nordic countries. If you go to culturesforhealth.com, you can actually get some of those very specific cultures. What we make here is yogurt and matsoni being a room temperature culture. But having good cultured dairy and also cheese is, especially smoked cheeses, The medium hard cheeses are pretty typical in the Nordic diet. What I call the Scandinavian breakfast is a pretty easy breakfast to make, where you have some rye bread or rye crisp breads. If you want it non-vegetarian, you can have some uh, meat or fish with that, and then some slices of cheese, and then some different types of pickles, like sauerkraut type items are good with that too. Nuts and seeds, things like walnuts, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, they're great in the Nordic diet. So the Nordic diet has plenty of healthy fats. I'll talk more about this whole oils controversy in a subsequent, not the very next video, but at some point subsequently. So watch out for that. Fish oils, I personally don't think you should buy separate fish oils because it's just not sustainable. But have oily fish if you eat fish. Butter, moderate amounts of butter are nice in the Nordic diet. Trying to eat seasonal and local foods, cold weather vegetables like cabbage. We really like broccoli throughout the winter. Apples, cold weather fruit. They keep all winter. Leeks, the staple of Wales. So eating things that are seasonal and local, not processed foods, not refined grains, not sugary snacks. Cutting back on all the artificial ingredients to do an Ayurvedic version of a Nordic diet. We just want to cook some of those typical foods with our Ayurvedic spices. So do stuff like our liver cleanse sabji that's under the recipes in our website. That's a carrot beet daikon sabji. Doing dals with root vegetables or khichdi with winter vegetables. So it's pretty easy to take the basic components of the Nordic diet and make it Ayurvedic just by adding our spices in that we like to have in our diet. Meat can be important in the Nordic diet. We never want to overdo the meat, but especially if you're friends with someone that hunts and you can get venison, that would be super Nordic diet. Ayurveda always puts at the top of the list wild game because those animals are running around eating their natural diet. So if you're able to get any wild game, that would complement a Nordic diet. And then, like I said, in subsequent weeks, we'll be talking about turnips. I think we're talking about turnips and then beets. We'll be talking about some of those winter vegetables and what are some of the special health benefits we can get from them. So as you can see, it's just basically very similar to the Mediterranean diet, minus the olive oil. Oh my goodness. Or I'm kind of modified Ayurvedic, Mediterranean, Nordic. Like my cold weather vegetables, cold country vegetables that I grew up on in the UK, have to have the olive oil, and then of course like all the Ayurvedic cuisine with the wonderful spices. So enjoy, try it out. Don't forget to click the like button, join the channel if you haven't already. See you next week. Namaste.